So hi there. I'm gonna do this video from the outside today because I am really kind of getting claustrophobic in the house all the time. This week we've deployed the mainframe integration where we're going basically to the DB2 database that's used by Tivoli Discovery, the TAD, and then integrated this with Remedy and pushing this data into the CMDB. In the CMDB, we're then creating relationships between the computer system, IP endpoints, the operating system, databases, and clusters. So this integration is pretty um, data intensive, not because of the data it's actually coming in, but the data that's being reconciled and then related. It took, personally, I got involved in this project in December. So I guess it is 4 months later. So I went from having a concept described to me to having it put into production with a size of possibly 250,000 of records, right? So this is relationships and CIs. And that's all happening this week. So I would celebrate, but I can't get hold of anybody. Not that anybody would actually care because, it's very geeky to celebrate things like that. I see this as I do see it as an achievement though, because, when I was a 6-year-old, I probably couldn't do this myself. So it took a couple of years between then and now, very short amount of years, that that gave me the experience, so I can actually do this. Now I work with some very impressive people. Actually, there's people on the mainframe side that been working on this for years. They're resistant to change, so I had to be like very unusual for me. I know if you know me, so to be a very friendly guy to make sure that the project does succeed. And then my directorship, the leader of my team, is a very impressive guy that knows a lot about SQL queries. He can do SQL queries like nobody's ever seen. Okay, so usually you go to an interview and you have a question about a database, So they during this interview they'll ask you whether you can do a table and how do you create a table, and then they may ask you how to create like data types in that table. But usually it's like if they hear you say select or create table, and then the variety of uh, fields that you go in that table, that's usually enough for that kind of interview question. And if you have actually done any of the interviews with me when you're getting hired at BMC, I'm hoping some of the people that I interviewed are watching this video. If not, that's too bad, but maybe 10 years from now. Um, you watching I don't want to say any names, okay? That's why I'm kind of hesitant to say who I'm talking about. But the person I'm working with is very skilled to go beyond create tables, create fields, alter tables, insert joins, unions, casting. I mean, it's like a college for me, college semesters worth of SQL queries and studying how the SQL query works. Now, there were some impressive people in my life, like Alan Coaches, who was my Unix instructor at Austin Community College here. This is like 1999, 2000, 2001, when I went back to college, because languages just basically wasn't enough, right? So I only had a degree in 3 languages, and these are spoken languages, so people don't care about that anymore because now we have automatic translators, and that degree was kind of useless. Unfortunately, at the time, I realized that computer science is also a language, really, where you tell computers to do something, and the computers are really good at it. So they do follow whatever you tell them to do. So back to this integration here. In this case, we tell the computer to, through a program, to go and collect the data from Tivoli automatic discovery tool, and then insert that into the CMD. So I want to just go ahead and start with that. Hey, this I know this video is not for everybody. I live in Austin. In Austin, there's people that believe that we're talking to people from the Pleiades. Okay, so yeah, you know, the stretch. So there's actually a lot of good information out there that you can investigate, but I don't really see anybody just talking frankly about their experiences with the CMDB. So okay, data structures. Your data structures of all CMDB designs that are in the world originally came from MDTF, which is the Management Data Task Force. It's a website.org, right? And you can go there, and this is where all the data structures came from. Now, I don't really know who actually founded that website, but I know that all the manufacturers that are using the CMDB have gone to that website or have gone to these and these providers. It's almost like a request for comments, RFCs that are out there. Somebody came up with comments on how things should be designed. So MDTF has done that for the CMDB. Now that website has changed over the years, so I haven't really looked at it in a couple of years. But originally, when the CMDB came out, this is like, I don't know, 2002, 2003. The DMTF standard was translated into a BMC standard. So if you look at the BMC data structures, you will see that they're complying with the DMTF or they do not comply with the DMTF. And then the MTF is literally just a object-oriented XML-based structure design that you can migrate from one place to another. And the reason this was actually very popular is because you literally can migrate data from one environment to another. And it's popular because you're buying one company, and then if they're using that same format, you can integrate their data over to your own IT department, and therefore this acquisition of companies is very quick. So basically, if you don't want to be acquired, if you're a company that does not want to be acquired and just wants to live outside on an island for the next take you over, do not use the CMDB. On the other hand, if you are interested in having a business that's being acquired by other companies, so that I'm talking about, the guys on top that basically make all the money when that happens, and then you do want to get that CMDB, and you will make it easy for companies to acquire you, because then they'll be able to take your network data and integrate it with theirs. Now, I worked with companies in South America where they, for whatever reason, they probably looked at the BMC data structure and they decided that that data structure doesn't fit their needs. So they came up with a additional 120 classes, which basically mimicked exactly what the BMC data structures were. So, for example, the system, what is a computer system? It's a definition of something that hosts components like operating system, has virtual components on it or has hardware components related to it. So the computer system is a host to many different things, from network to operating system, applications, the relationship to people, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, the computer system has a primary capability, and the primary capability is growing over time. However, in this company in South America, they decided to come up with a class for every single device. So like a mobile phone was a class on its own, and it was just really long list. I forgot it already. This was years ago, but it was kind of crazy. So my advice is stick what comes out of the box and read the DMT. There's a feature that exports the common data model. I'm sorry, I said DMT. I meant the common data model, CDM. Uh, will be exported into an HTML format, and every single class has a description of what that class does in general, and has all the information about all the attributes, and that can be read and kind of memorized. So because I've worked with this for so long, I have it pretty much memorized. I mean, I couldn't recite it for you like poetry, but if you ask me what is in that list, I could tell you what isn't in the list. So base element being the master class for everything, and then there's inheritance to all its attributes. The inheritance from the base element is going down to the computer system, and across the board. There are things that basically match that container definition, and they usually don't overlap. But over time, BMC has actually deprecated certain classes in certain fields so that they become a little bit more streamlined. Now, actually, I've done measurements of what the difference was before and after. And in some cases, this alleged improvement was really just a project so that that developer had something to do that year. And the improvement is actually very negligent. Okay, we're talking like maybe 2-3% improvement, if at all. Now, there were some major improvements over time, which were, for example, like indexing. If you do the indexing and the flattening of the CMDB model from the BMC product catalog, the BMC product class, rather, that I think we've measured the indexing and the flattening has resulted in probably 60 or maybe even 70% improvement in the speed with which the data are being processed. Now we're talking about reconciliation, normalization, migration of data. So there are improvements there, but not everything just because it was done has improved anything. For example, right now the is virtual field has been removed. I do not applaud BMC for doing this. They could have done this much better. The is virtual field did not have to have the same name. It could have had like is virtual global name and then have that attribute go down and be inherited to all the other classes. But right now, basically, if you have any is virtual settings over, I don't know, it's 10 years or whatever, you have data in your environment, that field now has to be deprecated and removed. Now, they did not do this through the deprecation engine. They actually done this through the through deletion of classes, and there's this really ridiculous knowledge module that explains how to do this. I don't envy the support guy that had to do this because I was in those shoes myself in the past. Now, okay, I'm gonna give it to them that they actually try to do. But if you go back to the development bed, you know, where somebody had to come up with this change, it was a bad idea. Okay, you could have done this a lot better because people have to now delete all the data in production. That's a nightmare. That is a nightmare, and the punishment should be you being reincarnated into the shoes of that person that has to do it, which is probably around the world, and then having to deal with the changes of having to write up all that stuff that you have to do, um, and then migrate the data so that you take this is virtual value to another field that now has a different field ID. So the best way to do it, of course, would be to export everything by the instance ID and base element instance ID, you know, associated with the value is virtual, and then migrate it to or import it back into this new field after you delete it. It's really crazy. Now, what's always amazed me about BMC development and the whole management structure is that technically, you know, if you were to sit down and write a script, they do not care about the technical part at all. All they really care about is that there are cases being generated for the queue. So that means that you come to them and they will, oh, well, because you're stupid, we have to show you how to do it. When really, it's really a way of creating tickets and thus generating the power for the environment that they're managing, right? So, well, I don't know if I'm ever gonna be gonna be quoted on this because who watches these videos anyway? But for me, it's like, you know, it's like therapy. Actually, I get to tell a priest through this window here of what I really feel about this because you cannot politically talk about this anywhere, right? But um, okay, I'll move on. So in uh, in the normalization engine, right? This is virtual field, and any data structures that you're gonna add, deprecate, remove, or enhance, you also have to adjust the normalization engine so that it records these changes and puts the data in there as they're expected by the general population of the organization. And then the general population of the organization are people that are working with the assets. So if there's a change request going in this weekend, those people are going to have to write up a change request, and they're looking for that application or application system. They're going to have to associate the computer systems with CRQ. Um, it would be nice if it could be done through incident management, not just a simple work order. But unfortunately, we've kind of let the beast out of the bottle now, the genie out of the bottle, and the genie is not willing to go back. On top of it all, it's now associated with agile. Now agile adds another layer of, did you get this done? So every week you have a sprint or a 2 week sprint where you have to say what the progress is. Um, Now, this is my T-shirt. You got status. I got status, but nobody really understands what the status is except me. That's the doldrums of a CMDB administrator, is that you're really talking about things that nobody else within your organization understands. And if they do, like your director or your manager or whatever, they usually don't have enough time to actually pay attention to what you're saying in detail. Um, yeah, I wish I could do better on that. So hopefully this 16 minutes is kind of getting you, hey, there's another guy out there in the same shoes that's dealing with the same stuff. If you have any questions or comments, please put it in the comments and I'll try to address it next time. Hey, enjoy the scene because it's fun. It really is actually fun. It's like custom made for certain people that need complexity in their life. And here I get to have something that's um, complex enough to keep my mind busy, because during the coronavirus, I'm kind of running out of things to do. Have a nice day.